Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me all right. Good morning and welcome to Employment First Topics and Tactics. We are very happy to have you all here today. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an introduction as we start. First of all, we want to acknowledge the land that the University of Arizona is on, the land and territories of the indigenous peoples. Today, Arizona is home to 22 federally recognized tribes, with Tucson being home to the O'odham and the Yaqui. We are grateful to be on this land, and we pay our respects to the elders, past and present. So I'm very excited to be with you all today. My name is Gina Griffith, and I am the fairly new Employment First Coordinator for the Sonora and USAID, and for all of you. That's why I'm here. Mile Sandine has been graciously and amazingly hosting these sessions and doing these duties for quite some time. Now she gets to transition to focus on her main gig, but we are very, very grateful for everything that she has done and contributed while all the new roles were getting filled. And I'm going to take 2 seconds to also introduce Jessica Winchester, who's our Employment First project manager here for the Sonora and USAID. We're both new, but Mile is getting us up to speed, and we're here for all of you. So I wanted to acknowledge all of that. I also want to acknowledge that this series is funded by Arizona Vocational Rehabilitation. So thank a VR counselor and anyone else you know there. This series of webinars is part of an initiative to promote competitive integrated employment for Arizonans with disabilities all across the state. We have another session scheduled for June 9th. And we will share the link in the chat where you can register for that. Soon we will be opening up the ability to register for sessions from July moving forward. We just have those on our fiscal year. If you have any accessibility issues during today's discussion, please ping me in the chat, or Selena, raise your hand, let us know whatever we need to do. Today, we're going to have a really terrific presentation where the partners involved will share the results of the DESP survey, DESP meaning Direct Employment Service Providers, and a really terrific assessment of our landscape was conducted, and they're going to share the results with you. We ask that you do hold your questions until the end. It might be that your question is something they just haven't gotten to yet. So mark them down, note them however you need to, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end. And that's about where we're at. So I'm ready to introduce our esteemed panel of presenters this morning. We have Mile Sandine, our very own from here at the Sonora and USAID, Michael Leyva with the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council, and Jules Hyde, the president of Arizona APSI. They are all dear friends and wonderful, brilliant people, and I'm sure you will enjoy learning from them this morning. So I'm going to turn it over to our panel to get going.
Thank you, Gina, and congratulations, Gina and Jessica. We're so happy for you in your new positions, and we're here to support you however we can. Can everyone hear me okay? Is that a yes? Good.
You sound good.
Okay, thank you, Gina. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today. This presentation is titled Using Data to Advance Employment First, Building a Stronger Workforce to Support Competitive Integrated Employment. It's based on the findings from the Arizona Direct Employment Services Professional, or DESP survey. Today, we'll share insights, challenges, and opportunities that can help shape the future of employment services in Arizona. Next slide, Gina. Thank you. This project is a collaboration between the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council, Arizona APSI, and the Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disabilities at the University of Arizona. We also received technical assistance from the Colorado Office of Employment First. One of ADDPC's primary roles is leading policy initiatives to support employment professionals serving Arizonans with disabilities. Together, we focus on understanding the current workforce and supporting professionals delivering employment services to Arizonans with disabilities. I'd like to pause for a minute and acknowledge a couple of people, well, actually more than a couple, but some champions that really made this possible. When I first talked about this idea, one of the first persons that embraced it and supported it and really made my idea, my vision a reality, and that's Milay. We are so fortunate here in Arizona to have her in the position that she's had and will continue to have. Again, I'm using the word champion, but that really describes what she is and what she does. And she really gets what we're all trying to do, and that is to provide opportunities for people with disabilities to work competitively, to earn a minimum, at least a minimum wage, to earn benefits, to be able to advance and be promoted, to enjoy their quality of life, etc. And so it takes people like Milay to make this possible. So thank you, Milay. And this beautiful PowerPoint that you're seeing today was created by her. So I can't thank her enough for everything that she's done. The other person I want to acknowledge, and I don't think she's here, but that's Hannah Wolke. And when I had this idea to start a project with APSI and with the Sonoran Center, I was thinking about a customized employment project. And Hannah said, Mike, that's kind of vague at this point. I don't think we're ready for it. And so she said, I think you need to do something else or come up with an idea, something that's more direct. And so that's how I came up with this project. So Hannah, I know you're not here, but I want to thank you for saying no to me and for, just your guidance. Okay, the next slide. So I mentioned that we received technical assistance from the Colorado Office of Employment First. We all know that there really is only one Employment First office in the United States, which is kind of sad, but we're fortunate in that Colorado is that first state. I had done some research on some various surveys and research that was being conducted to support competitive integrated employment. And I discovered that the Colorado office had done a project similar to this. And so I think you all know me that I'm not afraid to make phone calls and to reach out to people. And so I contacted the Colorado office. I talked to them about what we were wanting to do. And I asked if they would be able to help us. And they said, absolutely. So what I did is I put together a plan and I presented it to the APSI board. I asked for some funding in the amount of $2,000 for technical assistance, and the APSI board was gracious. They provided the funding. We used that money to pay the Colorado office to help us with developing the survey, making it more professional, asking questions, receiving advice from them and direction on how to analyze the questions and what questions to include. So I also want to thank the Colorado Office of Employment First. Next slide, Gina. So our goal was simple but important. Understand who Arizona's employment professionals are, what supports they need, and how can we strengthen the system to better support competitive integrated employment, or CIE. The DESP survey aimed to answer a few core questions. Number one, who is doing the work of employment services in Arizona? Number two, what training do they currently have and what do they need? Number three, how confident are they in critical service areas? Number four, what barriers exist to advancing their skills? And ultimately, how do we turn this information into meaningful action? The purpose of the DESP survey was to understand the real world experiences of Arizona's direct employment services professionals, those who are actively supporting job seekers with disabilities. This wasn't a general workforce survey. We were intentional in targeting only individuals who provide direct services, such as job development, coaching, and employment supports. To encourage participation, respondents had the option to enter a raffle for a $50 gift card. This helped boost response rates while recognizing the time professionals took to complete the survey. The person that received that gift card is Amanda McFerrin, and I contacted her. I found out that she works for Recovery Empowerment Network, and it was coincidental. I asked where her office was, and she said, Mike, I'm just down the street from you. And so I went to the office, I met with her. She provides services for individuals that have serious mental illness, behavioral health. And so this gave me an opportunity to meet another service provider. So it was a good opportunity to meet people on the ground who are actually doing this work. The survey was distributed through multiple channels, including direct emails, social media, newsletters, and provider networks. It was open from October through December 2024 and available only in English, which may have limited participation from some communities. Out of the 303 submissions, 242 were validated and analyzed after we removed duplicate, incomplete, or bot-generated responses. This careful approach ensures the findings reflect the experiences of Arizona's employment professionals who are doing the work every day. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lori. I'm sorry, to Mile.
No worries. Hi, everyone. So I'm here to talk to you kind of about what we found with the survey. And Mike, I want to say this would never have happened without his leadership and bringing us all together. So I'm really happy this has happened because even from as a leader of the customized employment pilot, we're going to utilize this information on making sure that we understand what training needs to happen, what platform, how, what needs to be available to employment providers. So thank you so much for leading the way. So the first question is, who are Arizona employment professionals? And remember that this was specific to people providing services. So leadership or people who are overseeing employment professionals and maybe and not providing direct services are not a part of the survey. We specifically asked for people who are doing direct services. And so 86% of the professionals have worked in the field between 1 and 6 years, with most being in the 1 to 3 years, 54%. I find that I think that's really interesting that a lot of people, this is their first job or they're just eventually ever getting going and starting. And so it kind of makes sense because usually that's where you start, right? The boots on the ground, the people who are doing the direct services. So we have employment professionals that are in the 1 to 6 years part. They are primarily, not 79% are female between the ages of 25 to 44 years old. This goes along with, strays a little bit from national standards, which national standards are the ages a little bit higher, but it's right along the lines with women who are providing the services in employment. Education-wise, 48% hold a bachelor's degree, 80% are Caucasian or white, while 19% of those identify as Hispanic. So gives a good idea of who is serving, doing direct services in Arizona regarding employment. Next slide. So one of the things we asked in was not only who you are, like who is taking this and who are the people providing services, but what is your current training status? What certifications do you currently have? Um, to get an understanding of what's been already done and where are people getting their training or what kinds of training. So we specifically asked about the CESP, which is a National Association of People Supporting Employment First, or APSE credentialing, stands for Certified Employment Support Professional. And 53% of the people said that they had it. When we go and look at the data regarding that, we know that there are 9 people in the state with that. So I believe that I'm going to put it on me, but we didn't do a very good job of clarifying what that is. We probably didn't do it in plain language. When I went out and got follow-up regarding that, what we heard was, I've gotten a certificate in something. And so they felt like that's what we were asking there. You know, certified employment support professional meant that they had gotten a certificate in some kind of training. So I think, so that's where the kind of the, you know, again, clarity of question or just being, you know, plain language and making sure that we're using, reaching out and talking to people about that. The CESP is not very well known. It's just new and getting started. So there, we can understand also why there was some confusion around that. So that's why there's that asterisk there, just for me to clarify that. 34% said they had MARC Gold and Associates training, which is a national training specific to supported systematic instruction and customized employment. 25% are ACRE. ACRE stands for the Association of, oh, see, here we go, Counseling Rehabilitation. So it's an ACRE certification. The thing about ACRE is it's basically a course that you take and you get certified. And then 83% of the people, this is so valuable information, I believe, people believe that getting their certificate or getting their training influenced them to stay with their employer. When we think about turnover and we think about staffing, we know that being an employment support professional requires a lot of training. It's and a lot of implementation type training, not just in theory, but putting it to work, or actually doing it. So 83% of our workforce, or people who took this, who are doing the direct services, says, when I get trained, when I get a certificate, when I feel like my profession's been professionalized or validated too in some ways, I'm more likely to stay with my employer. If my employer is willing to invest in me. And I think as we go about looking at the workforce moving forward, this statistic is very important because turnover is a thing. And we hear that a lot is when we talk about challenges and barriers. So employers or organizations providing training to their coaches and their job professionals and people doing the work. Next slide. So then we asked, okay, who are you? What have you received already? And then what services do you provide and where are your confidence levels? So it's kind of a 2-part. What services do you provide? We could understand what work are they doing? And then what are your confidence levels in certain tasks? It was quite a long list. So the top services provided were 60% of the people provided the DDD, Individual Supported Employment Service. 60% said they provide supported employment. I have a weird feeling about that, and I'm just going to say it here because everyone knows what you see is what you get with me. But I find that really super interesting now because there really isn't a supported employment service in Arizona. So it's interesting to see, what does that mean, supported employment? And I'm not saying that you're not doing it and that we don't need it. Please don't hear that. But it's interesting that supported employment was one that was 60%. Work adjustment training, 50%, that's a VR service. And then group supported employment, 48%. The other thing that I found interesting about this is most, I would say, were DDD services. So group supported employment, individual supported employment are DDD services. pre-ETS, JDR, they were all on there, but these were the top ones that got the most that we provide. Now, keep in mind too, a provider could get on here, take this and pick several, right? Because many of us don't just do one service, we do multiple services, JDR, ISE, GSE, whatever it is. So I want to make sure that that's clear too, that this wasn't a one multiple choice answer. Where we saw the confidence gaps were only 19% strongly confident in navigating in VR and DDD services. So 19% of the people really understood how VR and DDD and those systems and those pathways work, and probably on top of that work together. Nationally, when we look at this, not uncommon that state systems are what people get kind of confused about, or how to access certain things. So, but again, as someone who provides training or someone who creates training, and we look at different organizations, this is a good thing to know if you're a provider on here, that 19% of your workforce is saying, I need more information about VR and DDD systems, and then also how they work together. 33% felt strongly confident in customized employment. As someone who's leading the customized employment pilot right now, this one was really valuable to me. Also, obviously, a third of our direct service professionals feel strongly confident. What we're finding in the customized employment pilot is kind of, that's exactly it. They feel confident, then they take the training and implement the services through technical assistance, and then they're realizing they didn't really fully understand what customized employment was. So this data aligns with what we were seeing in the customized employment pilot too. Going in, people are very confident. 41% strongly confident in employment first principles. So as you know, for many of you, I'm sure you know, employment first is the foundation of the work. It's the belief that everyone can work with supports. It's not about job readiness. It's not about saying you have to prove that you can get ready. It's about, I want to work, and then us as service professionals and state agencies are saying, how can we support you? We're here to make sure you have the supports to work. So 41% strongly felt that confident in those principles of that. Next slide. So now that we know that, what they do, and then where they feel confident, what are some of the things that we're needing? And what are some things that people shared? I'd really love more information about that. One of the things that we did ask, and keep in mind that this is a question, subjective, this is based off of a DESP's perspective. We asked them, what is your competitive integrative employment placement rate? Meaning, how many do you put in of your caseload do you put into competitive integrative employment? 40% of job seekers, according to the respondents of this survey, felt that they were placing 40% of their caseload into competitive integrative employment in the past year. I'd love for us, I could have a full 1 hour discussion about that, right? Like, what is it, have more talk about what does that mean? What does that look like for people? But when we're looking at 40%, less than half of someone's caseload is going into competitive integrative employment, it reminds us that we have work to do. And I also recognize that the work does not necessarily sit alone with employment support professionals. It probably tells you that the state systems aren't aligning. It probably tells you that funding needs to be in certain places. So it's not just something that providers or employment professionals. And again, it probably goes back to this thing also, which is maybe more trainings needed. But what are we going to do to increase our employment outcomes? And when I say we, I mean us as a whole entire state. Some of the top training needs that were identified were disability employment policies. So when I read that, that's the ADA, the IDEA, the Rehab Act, WIOA. Do people really, understand what those are and how they contribute to our work? People with disability employment policies was at 52%. 1 in 2 people are saying, I need more support in understanding and recognizing what those are. The other one is cultural competency, or DEI. 38%. And I think when we have a state like Arizona that is rich in culture and rich in, has large tribal communities and ones that span across different states, and also a large Hispanic community, cultural competency, I think I was really happy to see that people were acknowledging that we need more training and support in that. I mean, we saw it here with this one, right? We did this in English and not in Spanish. And so we even, have acknowledged that we have more things that we need more information on regarding cultural competency in DEI. I'm using the word DEI. I'm saying it right here. I know I use the word DEI. I want to just say that I know with the change of the times and the time that we're in right now, the importance of the work, whatever we call it, I'm saying we have to stay focused on the work. And so that I chose, even though DEI is not, right now as things are happening that are affecting all of our lives. I don't want to minimize that. I also really want to reiterate that the work that we're doing still needs to be inclusive of people that we serve. And when I say that, it's not just people with disabilities, it's the intersection of the people with disabilities. And I really find that very important. And so as we provide trainings moving forward, cultural competency and DEI is something that everyone is asking for and needs, or 38%, I should say. The other is 37% were transition services. And I'm happy to hear that too, because transition is, is so important to employment outcomes. When we really look at how people are making that main decision after they leave high school, employment's got to be number one. It's got to be the first preferred choice for people. And so a lot of times when other states start, they're like, we're going to focus in on transition. And it's because that's where it is. Data has shown that if students don't get a job after high school or within that first year, the rate of them finding a job after that first year goes way up. So that transitional period is super important. So 37% of DESPs are saying they needed more information about that. Customized employment, I appreciate that we, of course with my pilot, but Mike really felt strongly about leaving this question in, and I really appreciate it, is that professionals want training in job development, person-centered planning, and employer engagement, all big parts of customized employment. So those were the kind of the big needs when we talk about training moving forward. Next slide. So what supports are needed to lead to like certification? When we ask, so here's what we need, here's the training that we are asking for that we're not 100% confident in or whatever, but what is it that keeps you from getting training? 59% said lack of time, right? We get it. We work, we're seeing people with services, direct service professionals aren't getting paid unless they're doing, working and getting reimbursable rates. So time was listed at 59%. 54% of it said that it was a cost obstacle. So time and cost, not a surprise to us about that, but those are the two things that kind of are the barriers or the challenges regarding getting and obtaining training or certification. But what I found that was interesting is time and money, but 84% believed that their employers would be willing to pay if funding was available. So if we created an option to support providers or, and helping them get their people trained, 84% believe that their organization would support them in doing that. So we provide some funding, we provide you the time, we'll give you the time. So that kind of go alongs with the whole 83% keep the job, 84% felt like their organization would support them. I often wonder sometimes if people feel like they can't get the training because their organizations aren't providing it or aren't supporting it, but this told us something else. They feel supported by their organizations, one, when they get it, and that they will be hopefully getting it, but they just need more support funding wise in doing that. So time paid, and then organizations having support and funding more training. Next slide. And so this goes to Jules, who from Arizona APSI, who will talk to us about our key recommendations.
Hello and good morning, everybody. Thank you, Miley. Thank you, Michael. Being part of this presentation has been an honor, and this information very valuable. So thank you. Yeah, we have some key recommendations. So the survey didn't just uncover challenges, right? It showed us where there is readiness, interest, and momentum. Based on the findings, there are 4 powerful recommendations to build a stronger, more resilient workforce. The first is a certification support fund. Just like Miley said, certification matters. 83% of the respondents said it increased their wages and encouraged them to stay with their employer, right? But cost and time are those big barriers we were just talking about. We recommend establishing a statewide employment professional credential fund to help cover the costs of ACRE, CESP, and Mark Gold certifications, especially for those working with seekers or job seekers who have the most significant support needs, where the quality of service needs to be outstanding. Number 2, employer engagement initiatives. With only 40% of the job seekers in competitive integrated employment, we must strengthen partnerships with businesses. Through the Arizona Employment Champions Program, we can celebrate inclusive employers and create employer learning labs. Those are spaces where employers and professionals co-design customized jobs and solutions for work that work for everyone. Employment is always a win-win. We're always going for a win-win and striving for that. These employer engagement initiatives would really help us achieve that. Third is a digital learning hub. Many professionals need training, but they don't have time for multi-day workshops. So an on-demand interactive learning program would provide flexibility and access, right? The platform could feature short, practical modules and real examples from peers, showing what works in the field. This is about meeting people where they are and building capacity statewide. Our 4th recommendation is a systems navigations trainings. Kind of goes back to the Learning Hub. Only 19% of respondents felt strongly confident when navigating VR and DDD systems. That's a humongous gap. Like Miley said, it was only 19%. Very large gap, but a fixable one, right? A mentorship program could pair newer staff with experienced professionals. A simple VR and DDD roadmap guide could help everyone understand the steps, services, and supports needed to succeed. Next slide. So we also have some additional recommendations. In addition to the core strategies we shared, there are 4 key areas we want to highlight to strengthen Arizona's employment system from the inside out. First is leadership development. With 86% of Arizona's employment professionals early on in their careers, now is the time to invest in leadership. The proposed Employment First Leadership Academy would give professionals tools in advocacy, systems navigation, and job development, helping them grow into the future leaders who can drive employment first forward in Arizona. Number 2 would be tribal inclusion and representation. The survey revealed minimal participation from tribal DESPs, which reflects a broader challenge, right? Access to training, certification, and inclusion in state-supported employment efforts. This is not just a gap, it's a call to action. There are prevalent communities in our state that aren't getting served. We recommend building partnerships with tribal VR and workforce offices, co-developing training that honors traditional values. This is taking those communities' values to heart, right? And increasing the trust that we can between our communities and those tribal communities. And co-developing training that honors those traditional values and expanding access to certification through on-demand, funded, and culturally responsive pathways. Our third recommendation is peer networking and collaboration. Professionals thrive when they feel connected. In statewide peer learning communities, network events and roundtables would give people space to exchange ideas, support each other, and build a strong employment community rooted in shared values and experience. As a coach, we're often out in the community without a team. It can feel like you don't have a team. You might integrate or become familiar with the teams of that employer location, right? But those aren't your team. Those aren't your coaches. Those aren't people that you can collaborate with and talk about the intricacies of what it means to support an individual with disabilities in employment. Peer networking and collaboration would absolutely help that. 4, tracking progress to drive change. This is just the beginning. To truly move forward, we must track and measure the key indicators like certification rates, competitive integrated employment placements, and retention. These metrics will help us make smarter decisions, adjust our strategies, and advocate for the right investments long term. Together, these additional recommendations reinforce a system that is inclusive, collaborative, and forward-thinking. This is exactly what Arizona's workforce and job seekers deserve. Next slide, please. Pardon. So next steps, turning these insights into action, right? Together, we can ensure employment professionals have the tools, training, and support needed to help Arizonans with disabilities achieve meaningful employment. Our work doesn't end with this report. We've outlined clear next steps to turn these insights into action. First, we'll share the findings with the key stakeholders, including VR, BDD, policymakers, and providers. Next, we'll engage these stakeholders through webinars and roundtables to refine our recommendations. Then, we'll develop detailed action plans for implementing each recommendation. Finally, we'll establish metrics to measure our progress. By working together, we can create a stronger, more effective employment services system that truly expands opportunities for Arizonans with disabilities. Thank you. And next slide. And I'll pass it back over to Miley.
Thanks, Jules. And I want to just kind of clarify. So here is QR codes for those of you who want to access, our websites and things like that. But one of the things that will be on the Employment First topics and tactics will be the handout, will be the full report and infographics, kind of sharing all the data that we found. And I'd love to open it up to questions now or thoughts. I kind of have questions for you guys too. So I'd love to hear, just take this next 20 minutes and just have a roundtable or kind of a informal conversation regarding what you guys think about this as people providing services or as leaders providing services throughout this. So Gina, you can, yeah, thank you. So I'm gonna pick on someone. Bill, what are your thoughts when you hear this?
Well, a couple things.
Mhm.
Those of us who've been in the field for quite a few years know that this is an ever-changing world. And one of the things that is challenging, particularly for those agencies and organizations that are providing direct employment services, we're faced with is both, I would say, the compensation levels and what the expectations are, and then also the experience and sometimes trying to retain those employees. So unfortunately, what happens is we have a lot of those people that are floating around to different agencies hoping to, move forward in their career or get more training or more certifications and so forth. And then oftentimes, unfortunately for the employer, they move on and then somebody else benefits out of that. But I think a lot of it, um, honestly, kind of lays the responsibility on the employer themselves, being willing to say, hey, not everything's about billing, not everything's about compensation. We all know that it's about revenue to be able to sustain a business, but at the same time, we have to educate our professionals. We have to make them feel valued. And then at the same time, I think that we have to teach them some skills that I have to be honest, and I'm not being negative, it's just an observation. And I've tried to mentor people in many cases when I worked with different agencies as a director of employment is to teach people how to interact with businesses because businesses is a whole different type of relationship. Um, I think oftentimes because they're being pressured, the employment specialists or whatever title you want to use for them, they're so concerned about the placement that oftentimes they sort of get in a desperation mode when they're talking to the employer. And rather than listening to the employer and trying to create a relationship there and see what their needs are and how we could meet those needs and make it a reciprocal relationship where both parties benefit, I think that education is key. One thing I have to mention was and I actually had to take a step back was when we saw supported employment, how people don't know what that means. And really all that means is any service that is a pre-employment service to help somebody attain employment would be considered supportive employment. And it's used throughout folk rehab and pretty much all the MCOs and the REBAs and so forth. That language should not be unfamiliar to our staff that are delivering those services, but I think sometimes it is. And I understand from a business perspective, it's difficult for those agencies because they got to focus um, on sustaining the organization. But we also have to start thinking about what if the people that we serve, what if that were to go away? Or even more so, what if the person was so discouraged by the services that they received and they couldn't attain employment? They may never maybe choose employment again because they're nope, it's too hard. I can't do this. It's too challenging. I didn't get the supports I needed. Or it wasn't the right job. And I've often coached so employment specialists to say, hey, look, don't push them into a job. You need to find a position that not only meets the needs of the employer, but also meets the needs of the individual that's going to work there. Because how are they going to retain that job, even with your additional supports? Anyways, that's my input. I hope I
Thanks,
didn't,
Bill.
I hope I didn't
No,
get on a platform, but
no, I really appreciate you saying that. And I also, you bring up a really good point that I want to bring up, which is you're right about supported employment in the REBAs and, that side. So you're definitely right. I think I still had my VR mind in. So thank you for clarifying that. Um, what are some things that people are surprised about? Is there anything that people were surprised about, Lynn, with those findings or with anything? I know for me, when I go around and speak to providers in person, or, the number one, and I told Mike this when we started this, the number one thing people are going to want training in, and it didn't come up, interestingly enough, was employer engagement. I mean, it came up when it came under the customized employment, but when I go around and speak to providers, that is, and Bill, it's what you kind of brought up, which is, knowing how to do employer engagement for good job matches rather than placements, right? Like we're really looking for matches versus placement, even though we use the word job placement. We're not just placing people in a job. And so employer engagement, that was a little bit of a surprise for me that that was not on the list higher than the other things. The other thing is I've always said that people doing the work are middle-aged white women, and here in Arizona, it is the millennials doing the work. So that was a little bit of a surprise to me too. Jules.
Thank you. Yeah, for me, it went back to, as a coach, and I guess this is not so much so surprising as it was like, yeah, matter of fact, is that team and collaboration, a space where DESPs can actually relate to each other outside of their providers. Um, so, I think the recommendation to create an environment or a space where that collaboration can happen is very much needed. Because the DESPs are really the ones that are navigating that liaison between the employment team and the employer themselves. So, you really can't, um, you know, I guess, make any more important that DESP's ability, right? And that education and the certifications that come along with that education and experience, um, really is really essential for that service to be provided in a streamlined way that avoids those speed bumps and those employment barriers. So I found that to be very telling and very true, because oftentimes as a coach, again, you do feel like you're kind of alone. You're not part of the employment team. You're not part of the group of individuals that you're helping your job seeker or their new employee with disabilities get acclimated to and work around. Um, and so to create a space where the ESPs feel like they have a team here in the state, I think would be very, very valuable.
Go ahead, Gina.
Okay, I'll jump in and offer my thoughts. I think part of what was a little surprising to me is when we looked at the confidence gap. And I've been away from employment first in Arizona at this local statewide level for a few years, but to see that less than half of people feel confident in employment first principles, I'm like, okay, but this is good information because it's going to help us. It's going to guide where we're going to go moving forward. So I'm going to use this to put in a plug for our June topics and tactics session, which will be the wonderful Jules Hyde talking about employment first principles. So we're already on it, folks. But we can use this moving forward when we look at only, less than 20% of people are confident in navigating VR and DD systems. But we need the professionals to have that knowledge to guide the people that we're supporting towards success. So I will definitely be using a lot of what's coming out of this to help guide my work and what we do in these webinars moving forward so that we're giving people the information that they need. So I'm so glad that we have all this great data to build from to move forward. So.
And then the chat, Linda Rudd says, improving transition is going to require intentional collaboration with ADE and school districts. And I think, Linda, I want to say that's true. And I think it's true for everything, right? Like it's going to, improving blah, employment outcomes, employment in Arizona is going to require intentional collaboration. One of the things I'm learning in customized employment pilot right now is the systems aren't set up for collaboration. That's part of it, right? And it has to be very intentional. And even when we're intentional about it, I almost wanted to use the word that we have to be like bothersome in collaboration, because it just takes all of us. It really takes all of us. And so I think you're spot on, Linda. I want to just say that that the intentional collaboration between all the systems is going to be really pivotal. And that might mean, you know, a mindset or a culture change in how a lot of us, and I say us as in providers, you know, all of us as community partners do work differently. Bill.
I appreciate you acknowledging that. I think my big concern is just that at this level, we're here helping parents and families and students prepare for whatever those services are at the next level, and yet we don't know what they are or what they look like. So we don't know how to best prepare them.
Sure.
And so we don't have the language, but and technically, you know, legally, we help students and families identify post-secondary goals. And so there's this big language barrier between the two entities. We have a contract. We're a TSW provider for Voc Rehab. And so I think we're more informed than others, and still those conversations are still really challenging, or to even talk to the families and students about what it will look like and what support they can get. And then even when all of us are at the table, those conversations are still a little, they're not smooth. Even when I've got the VR counselor there and the DDD support coordinator and the DDD employment and the parent and the student, and, you know, so I think schools are a good place to start, I guess, in terms of that collaboration. So thanks for letting me speak, and thanks for all the series this year. It's been very valuable, the opportunity to participate. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Always love hearing from you. Bill, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just I just want to commend you, Miley, for focusing on collaboration, because I think that's one of the biggest struggles that we have. Employment is everybody's kind of on an island. I mean, a perfect example of that, I was just having this conversation with Voc Rehab with Stephanie and her colleague recently, and saying, you know, I remember, and I don't mean to go back so far, but I used to sit on the Maricopa Workforce Connections Board of Directors. And I kept saying, why is it that all these different entities don't work together? So at that time, you know, you had the one stops, you had the DES one stops, you had Maricopa, you know, whatever theirs was at the time, all these different entities, and nobody was talking to each other. They're all doing the same thing, but nobody was, you know, building from the strengths of actually interacting with each other. And now we finally have that. Not not bringing politics into this, but Governor Ducey, when he was in office, said, hey, you know, instead of us all acting on an island, can we start interacting with each other? So everybody became A to Z at work, right? All those different entities. The problem with that is they're still sort of on islands, because they still put their little, okay, it's Maricopa AZ at work. It's City of Phoenix AZ at work. It's DES AZ at work. So, you know, I don't know how much that actually worked, but it's something that we have to, at some point in time, everybody has to start collaborating. And one of my last statement to that is we need to start thinking more about the outcomes and the results for the individual we're serving, instead of for our organizations. And I know that sounds maybe a little bold, but the fact is that's the person that matters. And my other thing with this too is I often told employment specialists, just because you got them a job and it's working, that's not the end all. That should just be the beginning. How many of us, if you look back when you were in high school or whenever you had your very first job, are doing that today? It's almost minimal, if at best, right? I bet if it was 1%, I would be surprised. And I think that's something we have to consider too. So.
Thank you, Bill. Well, friends, we have 5 minutes left. Does anyone else have any burning question or comment to share? And you can jump in if you think of it, you know, in the next few minutes. I want to give a big round of applause and big thank you to Miley, Jules, and Mike for the amazing presentation they gave. If you really enjoyed it and want to see it again, they will give it at the National AMSI meeting in June. So if you're headed there and you wanted to watch it again, you sure can. I'm going to ask everybody to complete the survey link that I'm hopeful Selena's going to put in the chat. We appreciate your feedback for these sessions so that we can improve them moving forward. And we will also be sharing a link to register. There we go. Thank you, Selena. The first link is to our topics and tactics page event if you would like to sign up for our June session, or share it with people who you think need that information, since so many people expressed they want to learn more about Employment First. Please sign up. The second link Selena shared is for a survey. We use your feedback to guide these sessions moving forward, and we are currently planning the next 12 months worth, so please share your feedback with us. And I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you to VR for all of your ongoing support. I see my friend Jules unmuted. Do you want to share something with us?
Oh gosh, I was just getting ready to say goodbye to everybody, but now that you ask, I really do agree with you, Bill. It's that collaboration. In order to provide a comprehensive service, we got to think about what it is these job seekers want to do. The magic you see when you connect an intelligence to the things that they actually are interested in, man, then they become the engine behind the motivation. No longer are parents or guardians pulling them out of bed. No longer are we trying to work on the on getting up just to go to work, because there's the motivation to get to do what you actually dreamed of doing. I got to dream about being an astronaut at 5. No one told me no. I got to dream about being a comic book artist at 12. Nobody told me no. This is what we're creating. We're creating a space for everybody in the world to dream about what it is they want to do with their life. And that's starting as soon as you can think, as soon as you have an imagination. That's what we're pushing here. So absolutely, Bill. Absolutely that. So thank you, everybody.
And if any of you know Jules, he still has a dream of being a comic book artist, and he still puts effort into pursuing that dream. So never grow too old or give up on those dreams. And I thank you all for joining us. We are so happy to have you all today.